situation?
We are going live right now. All right, welcome, guys. Everybody shush. Everybody shush. It's live shows right now, and everyone's still talking in the background. Can anyone sell anything on BAT, particularly old Porsches and classic cars? Are there still buyers out there? We're going to talk about cars, listings. Are there buyers? We've got Frank Kayser as a guest. He's going to help us today. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Bid Nerds is your daily YouTube car game show where we predict the online auction results of the most interesting cars on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, Haggerty Marketplace, and more. It's just like the Price is Right game show. Play along and see if you can beat the nerds. Yep, guys, it's time for a brand new episode of Bid Nerds. Welcome, everyone. My name is John Polnick. I'm your host, coming to you live from the downtown Container Park in downtown Las Vegas, along with my partner and good friend, Michael Deeb, over there in San Francisco. How are you, Michael Deeb?
Every once in a while, JP, we say we are limping across the starting block, and that is kind of what we're having here. But I think it's going to be worth it in the end, so thank you for bearing with us. We're happy to be here.
That is right. And welcome to the Nerd Herd, who's already settling in over here. We've got Andy Myers already hanging out. We've got Cajuns over here. What's going on? I think there's going to be a lot of people hanging out on the pod tonight from New Orleans, because our good friend Chris Carbine down there at Carbine Motors is having a cool event. How cool would it be to be there? I wish we were there, but tonight we can kind of be there. Chris Carbine is going to be on the show in a couple of weeks, but tonight he has our very special guest, Frank Kayser. Welcome to the show, Frank. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm fine. Had a great night so far with all these nice people over here, and they gave me a nice welcome because we just came from Germany to see the city and meet some friends, and yeah, I'm great. Thank you.
That's what being in a car is all about, right? Hanging out with friends.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, it's all about the cars and the people. Yeah,
for sure.
Excellent. All right. Well, so we, if you're new to the channel and you're going, hey, want to see Frank, that's cool. He is going to be here to help us play our little game show. What we do is we analyze listings on Cars and Bids, Bring a Trailer, P-Car Market, Haggerty Marketplace, and more. We find the most interesting cars from those platforms. We have a little fun talking about the specific cars, and then we make predictions as to what we think those cars will hammer for at the end of their auctions. And that's where it gets fun, because you can play along and see if you're better at it than we are. Most people are. Before we get to what we usually do first on the show is reconciling our bids from the last episode. We got a shout out to our good friends at Godden Porsche and Godden Classic of Las Vegas. If you need parts for your classic Porsche, or if you need a classic Porsche, give Godden Classic Porsche a call in Las Vegas. Tell them the Bid Nerd sent you. And also, if you're like going, hey, what time is it? How come these guys are late to start their own live show? What's going on? Maybe it's because our fine Swiss watches weren't in tip-top shape. If your fine Swiss watch needs repair, you got to send it to our Smiths. They are the best place literally in the world to have your fine Swiss watch repaired and serviced. And they will service your watch from anywhere. They'll just ship it to them, get it all tip-top, and send it back to you good as new. Give our Smiths in Idaho a call if you need fine Swiss watch repair. All right, let's get to some bids. Let's get to the cars. Michael Deeb, we had some great cars on the last episode. Let's go ahead and start out. What was the first one on the list?
JP, we started out with a 2011 Lamborghini Gallardo LP550-2. This particular coupe has a 6-speed manual transmission and is showing just 8,000 miles on the odometer. Our car is located in Vancouver, British Columbia, and is listed on Bring a Trailer. Now, the interesting thing that's here is most of the Gallardos came with the single clutch E-gear, which is a terrible transmission, and most of the cars are all-wheel drive. But this particular car ticks both of the cool driver factor buttons, in my opinion, being a rear-wheel drive example and having the 6-speed manual, which has, as we know, the Gallardo was one of the last mid-engine Lamborghinis to be offered with a manual. So finding one that is rear-wheel drive, low mileage, a super highly desirable color, I thought this car had a chance to do really, really well. Without further ado, JP, I started the bidding pretty high at $240,000, but you took the under at just $210,550. And it is worth remembering, our car is not in the United States. It is up in Vancouver, British Columbia. So, Frank, as we welcome you in and immediately put you on the spot, we reviewed a car that was on a live auction, and we like this car because of the equipment that is on it. Are you familiar with the Gallardo, and would you care to venture a guess as to what you think the hammer price for this car was when it closed at auction just a couple of days ago?
Yeah, I'm kind of familiar because I used to photograph this for Lamborghini magazine in south of Italy in Sicily a few years
Mm-hmm.
ago. It was a Technica, a special edition by that time,
Mm-hmm.
and also I did a magazine story for Lambo magazine in Tokyo with a car.
Ooh, cool.
So yeah, I was rock and roll photography without any permits, and so, but we ended out very very nice, very fine. So I really like these cars, but you're right. The all-wheel drive cars are kind of a little bit boring to drive, but this version will be. It's a beautiful car. I really like it.
Would you,
So you want me
yeah, put a bid. What do you think it might have hammered for just a couple of days ago when the auction closed? Low mileage, rear wheel
one?
drive, manual.
Yeah, 128.
128. Okay, so 128 would be low. JP, we had the bids up for a second there. Where did
I'll bring it
Randy
back
take
up
those?
for you here.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. So Randy was at 199,999. Anthony was at 228. Carbine was at 220. George was at 234. Gerd at 225. Kevin
Oh
at
wow.
220. Somebody else at
Oh,
205. And Tom at 245. And last one is who is that? Racer Nerd. Thank you, Racer Nerd. 219. I like Randy's bid. JP, our car, the hammer fell on our car at just $193,100. Where, Frank, it's interesting to note, it failed to sell. So at the low number of 193, that wasn't enough to take it home. Just 9 bids. John, my immediate
mm,
reaction is that we have
mm,
to take into account that this car is located in
mm,
Canada and not on the ground in the
mm-hmm,
United States. And bringing this young car across the border, whether you consider it to be problematic or just a financial formality, chances are it scares 8 out of 10 potential bidders out of the room. Do you think that's the only reason why this car failed to bring $200,000? Because it seems everybody in the nerd herd believe this car is worth in that $220,000 range and above, which that range really splits our two bids. I think you appropriately took into account that this car was in Canada, where the rest of us were just bidding on the car and not the location. So what do you think, JP? Anything more to read there than that? What do you see?
Blame Canada, man. I mean, you can just sing the song. The words, the song sings itself. This is a fantastic car that should have brought the money. Frank, I think, I'm not sure where your number came from. There are a ton of Gallardos out there. In the number that you said is actually kind of the normal number.
Yeah.
But I think what it comes down to is this is a 6-speed car, and the E-gear cars here in America, nobody wants them. Basically their flappy paddle version of it is a sales-proof car. So they literally go for half the money. So if this were an E-gear car, I think your bid would have been spot on. What do you think of that
mm-hmm.
result?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I wasn't for a couple of years. I wasn't so much interested in pricing of these cars. I'm more into classic cars. This is more what I'm
Yeah.
in. But finally, yeah, I would say, yeah, maybe if the low mileage and maybe there would have been a car from my garage. I
Yeah.
also like the color. Yeah, so School car.
Yeah. Frank, I also did you the service. I said it was an LP 550, but I don't think I mentioned to you that this is a V10. It's not the V8. And your number also might be more reflective of the V8 cars
Yes.
with the all-wheel
Yes.
drive. This being the V10 manual and rear-wheel drive. In this country, when we see the V10s with the 6-speed manual, they're worth 50% more money than all the other ones. And so it's a big deal in this country, which is why we covered this car. So we kind of hung you out to dry there. But we'll be nicer to you next one.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if we'll be nicer on the next one. This next one is tough on all of us because I don't think any of us on the panel, either last week or this week, know a lot about these. Maybe Frank does, but Deeb, why don't you, before we get to the next car, let us know what you think of the results of this Lamborghini 6-speed. Did it not sell because of Canada? Do you agree with me that we got to blame Canada on this one, or was it something else? Let us know in the comments below. And Michael Deeb, let's get to the next car that was on our list last week.
All right, Frank, we rarely cover American muscle cars from the 60s and 70s, but just for fun, we decided to take a swing at this 1970 Dodge Dart Swinger 340. This is a hardtop coupe with a 4-speed manual. Frank, this car is so interesting. It has a very vintage American bench seat. Not 2 seats in the front, but a full bench, and yet it still has a floor-mounted manual transmission. The 340 is a 340 cubic inch V8, which would be around, and correct me if I'm wrong in the herd, about 5.5 liters of motor. And yet the Dodge Dart was arguably one of Dodge's smallest platform cars at that time. So a very nice car, but in America, we see a lot of the boomer generation that owned and operated these cars are starting to die off or age out of enjoying the cars. And as they're selling them, the American market is saturated with average to slightly above average muscle cars. This is a slightly above average muscle car, but there is not a big market for it. We took that into account, and I started the bidding at just $40,000. JP was much more bearish on the car and gave us a bid of $30,340. Randy guessed $24,340. Anthony guessed $32,250. Chris Carbine guessed $32,340. George at $32,000. Gerd at $30,000. Kevin at $34,000. Michael at $31,000. And then somebody really liked it. Tom said $85,000, and then Racer Nerd at $37,750, and Michael, who I think is Buddha, $35,000. So Frank, this is really putting you on the spot. A unusual American muscle car, the Dodge Dart. It's not a Camaro. It's not a Corvette. It's not a Mustang. It's not even a Dodge Charger. This is a Dodge Dart with a hot rod motor. So it's very niche, but it's a cool little car. What do you think? Just throw a number out there. Where do you think this car hammered at when it closed on auction a couple of days ago?
I would say if you introduce it like this, it must be a higher price. I would say 39,200.
39,200 is not a bad guess. JP, you were the low man between the two of us at 30,400, but check out Gerd at $30,000 because $30,000 is what this car sold for on Bring a Trailer after 22 bids. That is a Yahtzee. JP, you missed out on a Yahtzee with your cutesy little 340 hanging off the end of there, but Gerd nailed this one on the head. John, you did have some experience with this car as a friend of yours. I think mother had one when you were a kid growing up. Why 30 grand? Because all the numbers say that this is a $40,000 to $50,000 car. Why so low? Why were you right on the money? Give us, tell us your secret.
Just don't. I mean, I like we said on the last episode, the people that want these, and like you introduced the car, the audience for this car is shrinking by the minute. They're the people that found this car nostalgic for when they were young. Those guys are all retiring or dying, unfortunately. And the young people, this car, you had mentioned a list of cars that everyone knows: a Mustang, a Camaro, a Corvette, a Charger. Though all those muscle cars that have a name that transcends just the basic nostalgia. Those cars have brands and names that, they still make Mustangs, they still make Chargers, they make those cars. So younger people can kind of be exposed to those brands and might say, okay, well, maybe I will get an older one, or maybe I'll look at that as I get into these cars. But they don't make a Swinger right now, or a Dart, or maybe they do make a Dart, but it's not a, nobody wants a Dart. It's like their economy car. I just think I think unfortunately these are DOA, and they're going to spiral. They're going to do nothing but go down in value. Frank, what do you think of these old muscle cars?
I am not an expert at all. In Germany you see them very rarely. So you see split windows and but not these kind of cars. And maybe once a year I see a car like this. So
when you
totally,
go to a vintage car event in Germany and somebody shows up with an American muscle car from this era, are those cars well received in Germany? Do people like them, or do they laugh at them because they are typical, bloated, overpowered, full of themselves, just like the American culture?
Yeah, I was, when on my way here, we passed 13 states, and I saw a classic muscle car from while to while, even in the south, here in the south. And my first thought was they just fit here perfectly. But you're right, in Germany, in Germany,
Candor.
it's kind of they're exotic cars, really exotic cars. Yeah, you see a Cobra or something like this, but not a car like we just saw. Though these are rare. But okay, I've been here in Austin in Texas on the Hot Rod Show, and I saw how many people were in love with these cars, and I really understand their passion for these cars. So I kind of like them really much.
We have a cliche in America that encapsulates, even the German feeling for these cars, and that is there's an ass for every seat.
Well,
yeah, you're right. You're completely. That's a good.
In Germany they have
good.
corners. If you have this, the place to have this car is Scottsdale, or someplace in the Midwest or whatever. Where the car meets are on the weekends in the summer. At the Frosty Freeze or whatever. And this is what everyone has, is old muscle cars, because all they got to do is go in a straight line home. It's great for drinking and driving, because you don't have to navigate or anything like that. So I think that's why they're still popular in the South. Maybe our friends in the South might have the same thing to say about that. What do you think, Chris? All right. What do you guys think of the results of this Dodge Dart Swinger? It was $30,000, the right money for this car? Or do you think the seller should have held out and maybe gone to the old Frosty Freeze car meet and tried to sell it there, put a for sale sign on it, and get yourself like a lawn chair and just hang out with a bunch of boomers? Would that have worked better? I don't know. I'm just having fun. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and let's get to the next car that we made a prediction on. What do we got?
All right, JP. On P-Car Market, we found a 1982 Porsche 928. Our car is showing 39,000 miles from original, but the car seems to have had a major accident in its history. It was written off as a total loss. Not a major accident, but I think we said it was a broken fuel line, which I'm guessing caused the fire. But somebody went to the trouble of restoring this car, despite the fact that it would have a branded title and an automatic transmission. Now showing just 38,628 miles, only a few years removed from a complete restoration. Our car looks to be in excellent condition, but you have to take into account that transmission swap is cost prohibitive these days, and this car will always have the total loss on its history. Frank, it's also worth noting that in America, the 1982 928 only made 220 horsepower, where I think in Germany this car made closer to 250. We definitely received a watered-down version of the performance motors in the United States during this era.
Mm.
And the automatics are really unloved. These cars, nobody really wants them. But this car was just very interesting, and I'll admit that when I picked the car, I didn't realize it was a total loss. So I said that I thought this car should bring $20,000. Interestingly, JP took the over at $21,928. And John, if you'll pull up the results from everybody's bid last time.
Don't have it
Do you
yet.
have those?
Don't
Nope.
have it yet.
Okay. Where you at, Randy? So Frank, tell us a little bit about the 1982 Porsche 928. In like, do you like these cars? I know the 928 is
Yes.
really a different type of Porsche enthusiast in America. Is
Yes.
it true? Is it the same in Germany? It's a different kind of guy than the guy who takes a 911. The guy who takes a 911 takes 3 911s. The guy who takes a 928, it's his baby, and that's it. You can't talk him out of it.
Yeah, it's a transaxle, and these cars haven't been loved in Germany a long time, but now there more and more people are going to buy those. But the latest versions, the GTS versions, they're the ones everybody wants to get. Um, it's Porsche says, because I'm very well, with the engineers who built the car, they said by the time they were their most modern cars and technical on the technical side, very very forward, and I really like them. I mean, about the fuel prices in Germany. Maybe it's kind of it costs you a fortune to drive this car,
Right.
but these are cool cars, and you can take the whole family. You got kids, and you take you can travel on the. If you put down the rear seats, it's quite a lot of space in the car. So
Okay.
just a very stylish car, I would say. With
All right.
some of those have the Pasha
Right.
interior, the
Right.
black and
Yeah.
white interior. So these are great cars. So, but I would say this one, I would say not more than 16.5 would be a price for the car. The
16.5
right.
is a very good number, and I'll tell you why. Our car hammered at $5,750, where it failed to sell on 6 bids. But with the P car market auction platform, when cars fail to sell, they are offered for sale at an asking price by the consignor and the platform. Our car remains available for sale in the deal tank, which we affectionately refer to as the chum bucket, where it is now offered for $16,500. So, Frank, I think you did very well on that one. But back in the herd, I think it was Michael who guessed $5,000, and that would have been the winning bid out of the nerd herd. JP, obviously, I kind of screwed up because I didn't catch the branded title on this one. But what do you think of that result? Just $5,000 for a branded title, completely restored 928. I mean, the car does look beautiful. Like, couldn't you get over the branded title for $6,000? Like, I mean, how did it, like, even PCAR Market couldn't get more than $6,000 for that? That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm really shocked by this one because the car does actually seem nice, and like I said on the last episode, I think this is a great way to get into the classic Porsche market without having a lot of exposure here. You know that the car's probably going to be reliable since it was just rebuilt, and it was. I mean, this is just a great way to have some fun for not a lot of money. Buying a classic Porsche for under $20,000 is almost unheard of these days. And when it comes to the salvaged title situation, like I said last time, it always comes down to what actually happened and when. Because if the car had damage done to it back when these cars were worthless, not a lot of damage would equal a salvage title. Nowadays, with the book value on this car being probably $30-something thousand for a non-salvage title car, you would have to have at least $15,000 or $20,000 worth of damage in order for the insurance company to salvage it out. So, whatever the damage was, it probably wasn't that bad back then, but it still resulted in that bad title. So, yeah, I think this car represents a great opportunity. I think the platform fell down as per usual. P-car market is always hit and miss. I think the fact that it had that title on this platform platform and they kind of try to bury it. They're not like really upfront with it. They're not like right out in their face. Hey, this is a great car. It's a salvage title, but here's what happened. They just kind of like, maybe they won't notice. It's that very used car salesman-y type approach that really makes P-car market fall down time and time again. I think if this car were on BAT, I still think the biggest surprise to me, honestly, is a reasonable price in the chum bucket. I mean, the fact that they're asking 16 grand in the chum bucket, that's like, okay, that's pretty good. I was expecting to see a chum bucket price of like, high 20s or something like that, because a lot of times
25
the sellers
to 30
are
grand.
really unreasonable on this platform. Frank, how do they deal with titles in Germany and Europe? Like, do they have the same kind of thing? Like, can cars be totaled and then bought back? Is that even a thing
fire?
there?
Does a fire ruin the title for a car? If a car has a fire?
That's not confusing. Just, are there salvage titles or not in Germany?
No, there aren't. Actually, you own a car, you can sell a title to somebody else. So you and keep the car. So that's the title always stays with the car. So if you sell it, it's gone. So and the car is gone. So you can't.
I don't know
keep
if maybe we're talking about something different. Maybe we're having are you familiar with salvage titles here? Do you know what that term means? Have you ever heard of that term?
No, I'm
Oh,
not
okay,
from,
okay.
no,
So
I
I think
don't.
that's we're probably confusing the issue here. So here in America, when a car gets in an accident and is covered by the driver's insurance company, if the damage exceeds over probably half the value of the car, the insurance company will write the car off. They'll just say this car is completely totaled, and we are getting rid of it, and it's not roadworthy. So they'll just basically pay the owner out, and then the title will have a brand on it that says salvage. Then someone else will buy this wrecked car and fix it up and make it roadworthy again. And then when they get the title with the car, it'll say salvage on it. So apparently that's not something they have in Europe.
We don't have this. We don't have this. And in Europe, never heard of this before.
I imagine in Germany, they're like, if the car's not roadworthy, they just crush it. They're like, it's done. There's no chance it could ever come back. You guys have really strict inspections and stuff too.
Yeah, we have technical inspections every 2 years. And
in America?
In the car
not so
much. If there's some rust at the brakes or somewhere else, or like relevant failures, they won't let you pass, and so you gotta do it. You gotta fix it and come back. And if it fails again, you gotta come back again. So, and it costs you whenever you go, it costs you 200, $300 to for the inspection there, and they send you back. So yeah, that's Germany. But on the other side, it might be good because we have safe cars on the road. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, what happens
you can
when
change?
what happens with the insurance company? So if you wreck a car and the insurance company pays you out for that car in Germany, what happens to the car after it's been totaled?
Yeah, you got for classic cars, there are two ways to get paid. So one is the market price, and the other is like kind of an estimate price. So you can when you start the insurance, you can choose one of these two ways, and then you'll get the money, and you'll keep the car, and whether you're gonna repair or bring it back on the road, or you gotta sell it. So, but you keep the car and you get the money. So you get both.
Yeah, here you have to buy it back if you want to try to repair it. All right, what do you guys think of the results of this 928 on P-Car Market? Should the owner have taken that $8,500? So that's one thing we didn't mention there, Deeb, is that after the auction closed, there were a couple of offers post-hammer that went in the chum bucket for up to $8,500, which really makes it confusing. But obviously the seller didn't accept that either. Do you think the seller is crazy? Should they take that $8,500 and run? Or do you think they should hold out for that 16.5? Or do you think, like I do, that they should just take the car off the chum bucket, chill out for a couple months, and then bring it back with better photos on BAT. Let us know what you guys think in the comments below, and shout out to our friends in the Nerd Herd. You guys, thanks for hanging out tonight. If you are in the chat, please give us that thumbs up, and if you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do so. And we're going to take just a quick 1-minute break, and we will be right back. You still going to be here with us, Frank?
Yeah, of course.
Right. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden. This guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. All right, we are back, and we're live, and we are ready to go with brand new predictions. We got a new list of cars all lined up for you guys. Michael Deeb, what's the first car on the list? Let's make
everybody's friend Chef from Red Rock Country Club. Chef selects car for us almost every week, and this week was no exception. He sent over a really cool hot rod. Frank, I think you're going to like this car. It is a 1977 Porsche 911S Coupe with a 5-speed manual. Our car has been treated to some very cool hot rod additions, including a 3.6-liter flat six. The car has also had some grafted on Carrera rear fenders, so it now has a Carrera body shape. Getty Design, who makes really excellent knockoff RSR style bumpers, so it has a Getty designed RSR style bumper in the front with the oil cooler, and the rear, which does away with the big heavy bumpers in the back. The RSR stuff also gets rid of sort of those accordion rubber straps as you modify that and go to the fiberglass. The car has a ducktail spoiler, and JP, you may have recognized it's got some very cool 17-inch Magnus Walker style 1552 wheels that look to be exceptionally big for what is essentially just kind of a narrow body or Carrera shaped hips. The car has a very cool interior as well, fixed back bucket seats, a Momo steering wheel, RS door cards, floor-mounted shifter, and some cocoa mats. But the real story here, JP, is the motor that is under the hood. While our car does not have air conditioning, it does have heater boxes and what looks to be full racing headers into a single collector with the sort of Stinger-style, center exit exhaust out the bottom. Really nice car. Very honest photographs. They did a really good job photographing the car from underneath by putting the car up on a lift. And it is noted that there is some surface corrosion underneath this car. JP, it's interesting to me because although the donor car here is a mid-year S and my car is an 84 turbo look, the condition of this car with like a little bit of surface corrosion and the Magnus Walker wheels is reminiscent of my car. So as I'm looking at this car, I'm seeing a lot of my own car in it, if that makes any sense to you. So I'm curious to see how well this one will do. But again, the real noise here is the motor that's under the hood. Frank, it's worth noting that when we look at these modified cars, a car that has an upgraded or a built motor brings the money. A motor like this will cost you about $30,000 for the motor itself. And then if you go and have it rebuilt and modified with higher compression pistons and cylinders, you could easily spend another $30,000 on it. I don't know that this is a built motor. It might be very well just a stock 3.6, but it's going to make a huge difference in how this very lightweight car drives. And it doesn't look like it was built by anybody in particular. It just looks like it was modified by the owner. So, JP, I send over to you the car that Chef selected. This is certainly a car, like whoever built this car is somebody you would want to know. I love all the design work. The X's on the headlights and the CB driving lights and the painted mirrors. The details, the devil is in the details, and the devil owns this car. I really like this one. So, JP, what do you like about it? And is there anything about this car that you don't like?
Yeah, I don't think it's, The engine is interesting to me because it just looks like a 3.6 slopped in there. It doesn't look like anything special, but I haven't read any of the details. I'm really curious to see what Frank thinks about this car. This is a very R group looking kind of car, right, Frank?
Yeah, kind of.
It has all the
um, I'm not sure about the
Oh,
interior. It's not my personal taste. I'll love to keep it simple. So or mostly original. Also the engine, engine work. There's you can easily spend 60,000 bucks in an engine and proper engine works today in Germany. But I don't know who the engine works does or did. So it's hard to tell. You got to drive this car to see how well it goes and how the transmission works and how stiff it is. And most of these cars have been driven very hard and they're not as tight as you want anymore. So a test drive would be necessary before you buy one of these, I guess so. Yeah, but in the end, you want a certain number, which would be, I guess, 95 or 80,
we'll get to
hey,
a
hey,
I would say.
we'll get to a
we'll get
number
to
here
the
in a
numbers.
second.
Yeah,
Yeah.
John, I want to tell you that the motor was rebuilt as it was installed back in 2015 by John Walker's workshop of
Oh,
Seattle,
okay. All right.
Washington, back in July of 2017. He also added a front mount oil cooler and a fender mounted oil cooler, a Steve Wong chip, a Wevo engine and transmission mounts, and all of this is running through a 915 gearbox. So just thought I'd mention all that, but it looks like it was just built like maybe they just did a top end on it. It doesn't look like they modified it with new cylinders or pistons.
Yeah, the sensibilities of this car are a little goofy. I'm kind of with Frank on the.
Yeah.
I actually like the interior. I like the seats. I like the door cards. I like all that stuff. I just don't like the color. Like if it were all black, it'd be fine. But this kind of red, white, and black pattern houndstooth thing, the seats would have been great if they just had regular houndstooth in the middle, and maybe just black door cards, and then just the dashboard. It's just like. It's way too much. It's just a little over the top. What is that, a Jackie Stewart steering wheel? So that's probably pretty thick, like the Magnus Walker prototypo.
Yep.
So Frank is right that when it comes to these hot rods, everyone is different, and you kind of have to drive them. But that is the dilemma when it comes to the auction sites. This car is for sale.
Yeah.
It's up in the Northwest. Frank, you're down in New Orleans. You're usually in Germany. I'm here in Vegas. There's no way to go and test drive it. Maybe you have a friend in the area. I know a lot of people in the Northwest, but if the car were in an area that didn't know anyone, you're pretty much kind of going, well, what do you do? Would you, Frank, bid on a car without being able to test drive it?
Never.
Never. So you would never buy a car from BAT.
Smart man.
All right. Well, there's an okay. All right, let's go with that one.
I don't know. Never. I would say never.
All right. So what do we think
if
this
the-
car is going to go for? What do we got here? Gerd is at 105. Randy B is at 118. Carbine saying that the car is showing 11,000 miles, but that's obviously true miles unknown. And if that motor rebuilt, I will shout out to John Walker up there in Seattle. They are well known. They do great work up there. So it's probably solid work, but just looking at the engine, it doesn't look like it just looks like a engine. I mean, they haven't done there's nothing done to this engine. It's pretty much just a stock 3.6 off of something, either a 964 or 993 stuffed in there. And that's kind of about it. So what do we think this car will bring? Michael D, you go first.
All right, JP. Our car is currently sitting at $67,000, and it doesn't close for another 2 days. It is worth noting, JP, I think I've glazed over it. Our car is located in Statesville, West, North Carolina. Even though the motor was done in Seattle back in 2017, the car resides in North Carolina where it is offered for sale. Again, we do say that the motor drives the value. And although this motor has been rebuilt and it just looks like it was built to stock standards, so I still think it's a $40,000 motor, but not a $50,000 or $60,000 motor. So I'll give you my bid, John, of $109,110, where I think it will sell.
Yeah, I think this car is going to have it's going to struggle getting over $100,000. I mean, it's a cool car, but it's just too kind of half-ass hot rod as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I bet it drives great, and I bet it'd be a great value for a car that you could go rip around, and who the hell cares? You could change some of the aesthetics here. I don't like the black trim on the side of the ducktail, by the way. But whatever. It would be a great car to have and drive, but I'm going to say $99,911 handed off to Frank. What do you think?
89.
89. Fair, and with conviction. I like that. JP, we got quite a few bids from the herd. Gerd says 105. Michael S. says 120. Chris Carbine says 108,900. Tom says 125. Kevin says 130. Arthur says 98. Scott says 126.5, and Buddha says 95. So the bids are all over the place, from 89 up to 125. That's a $30,000 spread. It'll be very interesting to see what this car brings. And the other aspect too is, this is a reserve auction. Like if it lands in that sub $100,000 range, does this car sell? That's the other thing we'll be waiting to find out on bated breath to see, what this guy actually had in mind. You know what I'm saying?
Frank, do you think the car will sell at that price, or do you think it'll fail to sell? Do you think it'll not meet reserve?
I can only tell you the situation in Germany. People, there was a time when people are buying cars at least as long as there would be a Porsche decal on it, they would buy it. But now the buyer's market has changed. People are much more into high quality cars. The cars get so we have two kinds of cars. So very high pricey cars and fantastic quality, and the other end we have these cheaper, let's call it cheap cars, but they are selling not very good. So you sell the good cars. That's what's still selling, and the affordable cars, let's call them like this, they're not very good selling. So that's the situation in Germany.
We covered a what was that, an 88 commemorative edition 911 last week that had 300-something thousand miles on it. It had a fresh rebuild, and the rest of the car was fairly nice. But that car, what did that car bring? Do you remember, Deeb? I think it was like 80, 90, or 80-something $1,000. It actually brought really good money. $76,000. Yeah, and it actually sold for that with 300,000 miles. So, and I kind of posed the same idea that it's like, the quality stuff, the blue chip cars are definitely still bringing big money. But I was kind of like looking at that particular car as a canary in the coal mine, saying, all right, if this car fails to sell or doesn't bring much money, then it truly is kind of a crash in the air-cooled market, but it still brought almost $80,000, and it had some rust spots, and it just wasn't a perfect car. It was a nice driver, but this car has a lot more going for it with all the eyeball, the wide body, the bigger engine, and stuff like that. So I think it does have a chance, but I just don't know if it'll get in the anywhere much above 100.
Frank, that yellow Carrera over your shoulder is your old car, I understand. Now that you're reunited with it, do you regret selling that car?
Yes.
There it is. All right. Well, let's move on. So Frank doesn't start crying on camera.
I know, right?
Let's talk about. Let's change the subject. Let us know what you guys think this hot rod
commercial.
911 will bring. Let us know in the comments below, and let's move on to the next car. This one's on Cars and Bids. We're changing platforms. What do we got?
All right. So, Frank, a gentleman by the name of Chris Carbine selected the next vehicle. It is a 1987 Toyota Land Cruiser. Our car is on the Cars and Bids auction platform, showing 160,000 miles, which is like, I don't know how many kilometers that is, but it's a lot. And then what else can I tell you? The car is in New Orleans, Louisiana, and it's offered for sale by One Carbine 123. So it's a 4-speed manual. It's a 4.2 liter inline six. These are 4-wheel drive. The car has had a color change in its history. In other words, this car was born in white, but one of the previous owners repainted it in this very attractive metallic beige colorway. Now, this car does not have a lot of modifications, just like the color change and an aftermarket stereo, but otherwise it is basically stock. In this country, and I'm really guessing here, but it seems to me that in this country, when people start spending money on these cars with aftermarket suspension and wheels and tires and overland gear like spare wheels and a roof rack and accessory lights, these cars start to bring more and more money based on how much money has been spent on them. But when the cars remain basically stock or as they were born, they tend not to be as valuable, which is sometimes the case with 911. Sometimes it's the inverse. Sometimes if you modify your 911, it's worth less money. So it's interesting to see what this car will do on Cars and Bids. So JP, I sent it over to you, a very basic, very standard, very clean FJ60, right? Is that what they're called? Am I doing that right? Yeah, FJ60 platform, all-wheel drive, a nice colorway. What do you think? This is obviously Carbine's representing this car. What do you think, JP? You know these a little better than me because you grew up where weather and mud were more of the day-to-day. Where I grew up in the city in San Francisco, I never saw one of these until I was in college. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's
crazy?
a weird take from you, actually, Deeb, to say that they bring more money with the stuff, because that's just, we haven't seen that be the case when it comes to the classic off-road vehicles, particularly the Toyotas and stuff like that. I mean, if it had some period correct mods, like round actual period correct KC overland lights, that might bring a little extra money. But if you put the modern LED light bar on it, that would totally screw this thing. If you put the bigger wheels on it with the big off-road tires, that would not help this vehicle's sale potential at all. In fact, it would completely ruin it. What makes this car, particularly these old Land Cruisers, they definitely need to be, the more stock they are, the more likely they are to bring big money. This one looks to be a pretty honest, basic one. I mean, obviously it spent time down there in the South or in the East Coast. It's got lots of surface corrosion. But one thing about these old Toyotas, it just doesn't matter unless it's rusty literally in half. It's just going to keep going and going and going. These things are bulletproof. There's a reason why terrorists love them. Because you can fix them with baling wire and gum.
Oh my God.
And they don't even have power windows. It's just everything is mechanical. This is a very reliable old school car, and it's the beginning of the SUV craze. When they were building these and selling them, the word SUV didn't really exist yet. So these are very, very popular. I love this thing. I would love to own one of these. The only downside for a guy like me being in the desert, it's pretty tough to find one with operating AC. Otherwise, I think I'd want this. But if you had a ranch somewhere, or man, I just love how basic and old school this thing is. Frank, what do you think of these old Land Cruisers?
I'm not very familiar because I'm a G-Wagon fan. I own a G-Wagon. Um, but they're kind of cool, and you're right. I don't like cars with modifications on these. Maybe the suspensions can be modified, I think, or should be. But yeah, as more originally they come, the better they are. So I would say, yeah, I'm with you. I kind of like it. I like the color. And the inside, yeah, maybe you do some work on the interior as well. But okay, it's a cool car, actually. Yeah, comes with a nice rims and yeah, cool
All
car for
right,
me.
Deeb, what do we think it's going to bring?
All right, JP. So as I did a little bit of research on these, looking at some of the result history on classic.com, there were some modified versions of the FJ60 that brought $60,000 to $100,000, and they were not wildly modified, but jacked up and roll bars and the things. Some of the basic cars with high miles that looked relatively stock were struggling to bring just $20,000. I know Carbine is invested and in this car's sale and is trying to do well for it. I must confess that I don't know them very well. So as I give you my bid, I am literally just throwing salami to the wall and see if it will stick. I will give you the hammer price of $22,000. And based on what I've seen, if this car brings $22,000, I think it will sell.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good guess. I think when you're looking at those comps, though, you're talking about the ones with all the stuff on them. I think the common denominator for the expensive cars is that those are the ones that have been restored. Versus the other ones that are just stock and basic and old and high miles and still need restoration. If you found one of these that was restored to stock, it would do even better than the modified ones. I think, generally. But again, you can do tasteful mods that aren't, again, if they're period correct. If you jack it up, it looks stupid. If you raise it just a little bit so you can put a slightly bigger tire on it, okay, that maybe makes sense. But taste is everything, and it definitely, you start getting into those mods, kind of like that 911 that we just talked about a second ago. That interior is really polarizing. Some people are going to look at that interior and go, "Yeah, it's just like a Singer. I want that." Whereas a lot of us are going, "Yeah, that's a little too much." So this one, I think it's not going to bring that big, huge money, but it would be a great place to start if you wanted to just drive it. Or if you wanted to do a full restoration and spend some money on it, if you could get this thing under $30,000, I think you're going to do okay. I'm going to say $25,000 flat and hand it off to Frank. What do you think?
Almost. I was at 24,500. I would say
Very good.
same
Parking
would
it
be
right under me.
the
Okay.
cap price for
Yeah.
it.
Smart.
Yeah.
And JP, we got some really good bids. It looks like let's see. So I think Tom started off at 55, which is high. Randy B at 14.5. Kevin at 35. Racer Nerd at 23.5. John Arsner at 24,800. Michael S at 30,000. Gerd at 22.9. Scott at 28.5. Buddha at 26,660. What's up with that, Buddha? Buddha said it was evil, so there you go. Anyway, the bids are all over the place, JP. As low as 14 and as high as over $50,000. That is a wild spread for a car that has such a cult following. You'd think we as car people would know a little bit more about the value on these. So I guess it's anyone's guess. It'll be interesting to see what this brings when it closes just a couple of days from now.
We don't see a lot of these. We don't see, like clean ones don't come up very often. It's either full-blown resto mods or, complete trash. And so it'll be interesting to see if Doug DeMuro does well with stuff like this. So I do think this is the right platform. If there's any chance for Chris to get the money for it, I think he's in the right place. What do you guys think this little Toyota is going to bring? Let us know in the comments below. And let's move on to the last car. What's the car we got?
All right, JP. This is a Lamborghini Deja Vu. On PCAR Market is the 2018 Lamborghini Huracan Performante Coupe that we actually covered just 2 shows ago when it was on Bring a Trailer. And I guessed 280 and you guessed 250, and our car failed to sell at 214 on just 8 bids. I'm guessing, John, by the fact that this car closes on Friday, they must have put it up on PCAR Market the very next day. PCAR Market is actually the Latin root of "there is no shame in our game." I think that's what that translates to. But without anything, JP. The same photos, same everything. It's just it's almost laughable that they would put it up so quickly on another platform, which tells me that the owner of the car is desperate to get out from underneath it. And I would say that if it tells me that, it's telling everybody that. The fact that this guy didn't sit on this car for even 6 weeks is a sign of desperation to cash the car out. And with that being the level, the note that you smell when you first take a whiff of this car, knowing that it failed to sell at a below market value on BAT, the largest auction platform in the world, and now you're going to go put it up on PCAR Market and expect it to do better. I think this guy is sniffing glue. I think he's in for a world of hurt. And John, I said this to you when we reconciled this car a couple of weeks ago, actually just a couple of days ago. I said to you as I handed it over to you, I said, "Do you think the car is burnt?" And you said you didn't think so, and then you gave all the reasons why you thought it was. That in this colorway it would be, and it wouldn't be burnt if they took the wrap off of that. Well, clearly they didn't have time to take the wrap off of it and rephotograph it. This guy owes his I don't know, what does he owe? He probably owes his team at his startup company next week's payroll, and so he's trying to cash it out right now. I don't think this car is going anywhere. The only thing I'm looking forward to here is to see what the number this car winds up for in the chum bucket, in the deal tank. When it fails to sell in just 2 days from now, we're going to find out what this guy actually wants for the car, which will be interesting because I think that number, the over and under, is going to be around 250, 260. It'll be interesting to see if he's asking more than that, and we believe that it's not worth it, or if he's just reasonably trying to get off of it, he's looking for 235 or 240. But I don't think, because this car failed to sell at just 214 a week ago, I don't think this car breaks 200 grand, and I'll just give you that as my prelude up front. So John, oh, look at that. There's images of what it might have looked like on the white paint. So, JP, what do you think about this car showing up on PCAR Market before the body's even cold?
Well, I mean, you basically said everything I was going to say before I said it.
That's
what the
job.
hell? Why didn't they take off the wrap? I mean, here's a video of it before the wrap was put on, and it looks so much better. This guy, the only chance he has to sell in this is to wait a few weeks, get the wrap off, and relist it with new photos so people don't quite realize it's the same one as before, and maybe you attract a whole set of people that would actually look at this car. 90% of the people that might want a Huracan are going to look at this car with the silly wrap. We just absolutely tore this car apart on the last episode when we talked about this car. And all those people are going to see it's the same piece of junk again, and the car only got it only got 9 bids, but when it failed to sell.
Right.
So this guy is just absolutely just straight up stupid. The seller of this car is not a smart person. We're not talking about a serious person here. How they think, here's what I actually suspect happens, and this just goes to PCAR Market as usual, and their stupid games that they play. I guarantee you, I have no proof of this, but this is pure speculation. But I guarantee, based on my speculation, that PCAR Market basically trolls BAT for everything that fails to sell and tries to get them to list it on PCAR Market.
Oh, yeah.
And I bet, it's like that guy at the nightclub when we were in your 20s, right? There's that guy that's just like, I'm going to hit on every goddamn woman in here, right? And they have no chance, but they think just by pure numbers, if I ask 100 women, will you sleep with me? One of them's going to, I got a 1% shot that I'm getting some.
Yeah.
I think that's the way PCAR Market basically fills up their site with cars. They just hit everyone, and eventually some drunk, desperate chick's going to be like, okay, the ugly lights are on. They're like, well, I got enough. Frank, what do you think of this Lambo?
Yeah.
You love it, don't you? You love this car.
I have a personal story to tell you.
Okay.
I once owned an Audi, one of the first versions. I worked a lot for Audi, and I did a book with the R8. And I always wanted to own an R8 at the time. It was first edition R8, and I have wrapped the car. So I let it. So it looked like a stealth bomber, like a Martel gray. So it was. When a few years later, I drove only a 5,000 or 8,000 kilometers on this car. So it was a used car. I bought it with 20K. So I couldn't sell the car at all, and I was on the technical side. I decided to let the wrap on the car, and nobody wanted to buy this car. It was a crazy situation because on the technical side, it was a fantastic car. Really, I was as new, and I couldn't sell. I lost so much money on the car, and when I see this story with this car, I guess my 9-year-old son Matteo, he's a great, he's one of the biggest fans of Lamborghini at all. He would have loved it with a white color. So please take the rep of this car. I
Yeah.
can just give you this advice. So, and
Yes.
then the
Good
car will be
advice.
selling soon.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the car would get so many more people looking at it. When you're scrolling through all the dang cars on BAT, I mean, let's face it, P-Car Market only has like 6 or 7 cars at any given time. But BAT, there's a lot of competition for eyeballs on BAT. There's a lot more eyeballs on BAT than there are on P-Car Market, but you are fighting against lots of other cars. You got to give yourself every chance you possibly can. The Huracan buyer, the guy who's actually shopping for one of these cars, is going to see this listing on BAT with the silly wrap and just keep on scrolling. They're not even going to stop. They're just going to be like, what was this idiot doing? But if it were the stock white car, every single person that was interested in this car would stop and look at it and examine it and find out, okay, it's got the cool supercharger and all this other stuff. And I think the car would actually do quite well if it were its original color, but with all the other mods are fine. I think the car does great with all the other mods, but with this, it's just, this guy is just shooting himself he's already shot himself in the foot. Now he's like, well, shooting myself in the foot didn't work. Let's try shooting myself in the other foot. But this guy just needs to take a gun to someplace else and just put us all out of misery. What do we think this stupid Lambo is going to bring on P-Car Market, dude?
All right, JP, we have a comment from Andy Stahl for Frank, and he says, this German dude and I would get along. We're lieben den R8. So thank you, Andy Stahl, for reaching out in the native tongue to our guest nerd. JP, I don't think this car will break 200 in the natural auction. I will give you my bid of just 188,000, citing something that you and I talk about all along. This car is its own worst comparable result, and it just happened. I mean, we can almost count it in hours and days rather than weeks. So this was a failure to agree to bring this car back to market so soon and without any changes, as you cited. JP, the difference here is I think that the car will wind up in the chum bucket for over 250. I suspect we see this car in the chum bucket for around $265,000. So, John, what's your bid? What do you think is going to happen when the hammer falls on P-Car Market on Friday?
What was your number?
188.
And what was the number on the last time this thing hit?
214 on 8 bids, and it's at right now $50,000 on just one bid.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a couple bucks more than you. I know that's gonna surprise you. I'm gonna say 190, right? Or what was your number? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm at 188, so you're over me at 190.
Just a little bit over you, right?
Yeah.
Because the one thing about P-Car Market that is different from Bring a Trailer is that there are a lot more douchebags per user on P-Car Market than there is on Bring a Trailer. So I think if you are marketing to the douchebag crowd, the guy should have just started with P-Car Market. Frank, what do you think this car is going to bring?
It failed to sell at
172.
172. That's a good bid.
172.
Yeah, that's a very good bid, Frank. I like that.
Frank, I assume you think it won't sell, right? Or do you think it'll actually the seller will actually take that?
Yeah, it's gonna sell. I'm sure. Now after all this, the people love it. I guess.
You think think the seller, after missing out on 220, will accept 176 a second time around?
I guess so. Yes, he will.
All right, that'll be really interesting if that
would be very
winds up
interesting.
happening. All right,
Battle of the champ. Tom says 198,000. Michael S at 195. Gerd says 185, and FTS. Racer Nerd at $201,000. So he thinks it'll break 200. That's an interesting take. Scott says 186.5. Buddha says bidding will be lower than BAT under 200 and will wind up in the chum bucket for 250. Buddha, you know the rules. You got to give us real numbers. Don't give us your theory. Everybody's got a theory. Let's see. Who else? Kevin, 220 in the chum bucket. And Randy B says 209,420. I see what you did there, Randy. Yeah. Didn't know you spoke that language, but yeah, hey, we're all human. And I think that's all the bids. There you go. All right.
What do you guys think this car will bring a second time around? Is a second bite at the apple going to do it on this super fruity Lamborghini? Or do you think it's just heading to the chum bucket? Let us know in the comments below. All right. Before we get going here, Frank, you got in your hands there. That looks like a book that I think, word on the street, you're the author of that book. What is that?
Oh yeah, this is my little Porsche 580 pages Porsche Bible. Let's go like this. No, it's kind of a love affair I had with a club from called the R Group, and yeah, really intensive story about these guys and Porsche. A classic Porsche at all, and it's kind of yeah, it's all about these people and who love their cars and the passion for classic Porsches, and yeah, it's a worldwide and best-selling book I ever did, and multiple awarded book, and yeah, I guess it would be a right book for your people and your fans you got, and so just go ahead and buy this book. It's almost sold out. It's been on the market for 2 years, but it's already almost gone, so last chance to get it.
Where do you get one if you want to get one? Where do you get it?
You can. I'll send you one.
Where do they buy one?
Yeah, it's a webpage called thearbook.com. www.the richardbook.com. There you can get it. You can order.
Where you can get it. Order one of your order one of the last available R Group books. Sounds first like it's the first edition, and there doesn't sound like there's a whole lot many of them left. So get one soon before they're all gone. I don't know. You think you'll do a second edition, or is there going to be a follow up to this thing?
No, there will be no second edition. So when they're gone, they're gone. I'm up for the next project, and so that's a collector's item. And people love it, so when it's gone, it's gone.
All right.
Beautiful.
Don't miss out on the R Group book by Frank Kayser. Check it out, you guys. Check out his website and go buy his book. It looks pretty badass. I got to see some of it before, and beautiful photos. Great piece of work there, and look great on anybody's coffee table, right? I mean, it's like we've got all this stuff around here. It's like we're always trying to find how many coffee books can we have? It's like every time I get one, I think, okay, this is the best one ever. Then we meet Frank, and he's got one even better. So what the hell?
Frank, are you going to be in the United States very long? Are you going to Air and Water Luftkult in a couple of weeks, or are you going back home to Germany?
Well, funny story is that they're coming to Europe now. They invited me to show my photographs and my fine art prints. There will be 2 shows, one in Poland, Wrocław, and in the south of Poland, and there will be one in Copenhagen and Denmark in September. And they have we're in plannings to do a fine art show, and a very nice. It's on an old airport and a beautiful building, and so I'll be the only photographer advertising or showing my work over there. It's good. It's a great honor for me that they contacted me, and so that'll be fun for me to be there with the guys.
Congratulations and good luck with everything. Thank you for coming on the show. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right.
It was a pleasure.
And thank you, Nerd Herd, for hanging out with us live. It's always fun to do the show with you guys, giving your bids in there. I know that the probably Spud Syndicate is probably just going to keep cleaning up. They keep doing so much better than we are. But thanks for playing along, and we will see you guys Sunday night at 6:30. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time. Thanks again, Frank.
Thank you, Frank.
Bye.
Get those nerds!